You know, if you've been near death, like me several times, 3 times in the past 3 years, if you see panic, you begin to wonder how prepared people are for death. Now, this is not hopeless. This is a very good, very good situation. Like we're constantly telling each other at ABI, this is the time that you should really confront your relationship with God. This is a time to self-reflect about what you really want out of life. This is a time to dig deep into your relationship with God and spring forth by His grace and serve Him much better than you're doing. Times like this tend to wake us up to the realities of life. And I hope you're not sleeping. All right, let's turn to John. Just last night I was thinking, oh, okay, there's coronavirus all around, there's panic all around, should I change the sermon? I'm like, no. I'll stick to what God had put in my heart previously to share. I think there's panic buying, then there's also panic preparation. Let's turn to John chapter 8. Jesus went to the Mount of Olives, and early in the morning he came again into the temple, and all the people came unto him. Not that, all the people came unto him, and he sat down and taught them. And the scribes and the Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken in adultery, when they had set her in the midst, they said unto him, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act. Now, Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what do you say? This they said, tempting him that they might have to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground, as though he did not hear them. So when they had continued asking him, he lifted up himself and said unto them, He that is without sin, let him first cast a stone at her. And again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. And they which had it, being convicted by their own conscience, went out one by one, beginning at the eldest, even unto the last. And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. And when Jesus lifted up himself, he saw none but the woman. He said unto her, Woman, where are your accusers? Has no one condemned you? She said, No, Lord, no one. And Jesus said unto her, Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. Now, let's reimagine this story. In one part of town, Jesus is teaching. He went down from the Mount of Olives, he's teaching the people in the temple area. On the other side of town, the Pharisees and their ninjas are plotting. And they're saying, what can we do to get Jesus? What can we do to get Jesus? So they come up with this very CIA-like plot, and they scout for somebody who is in the very act of adultery. Now, if you imagine this, keep your sanctified imagination in check. If you imagine this, you would wonder, how did they really get someone in the very act of adultery? Did they sit for a moment to watch pornography as it happened? Did they finally say, all right, let's go get them now? Did they knock the door, these scholarly, very bearded, very robed men? Did they bang the door like they are going to get a criminal? Did they open it with their legs? Did they grab the woman and drag her out? Was the woman naked? Did they put some rope on her? Was she in her night dress? Remember, this is very early in the morning. Very early in the morning. Did the guy escape and report the case? Now, they brought this woman through the streets. Perhaps she's walking barefoot. And they are shoving her, You just imagine all these very, intellectual, philosophical, religious, bearded, robed in white men who stand in the streets to pray. And they are pushing and shoving this woman throughout the streets. And everybody in the street is like, what is happening? What is happening? So if it is like in Africa, which I imagine, everybody starts following too. Like, oh, where is this ending? Where is this going to end? Let's go and see. Let's go and see. They don't know what is happening yet, but they want to find out what's happening. More recently, a truck drove way out of the road, and I was in a taxi, and there was some jam. Then I heard some guy actually stopping to, gathering a crowd around him and saying, you guys, do you know I was in this same situation recently? And he was narrating all his history of driving. And these guys wouldn't even lift a hand to pull the truck, but they were involved in some form of conversation about the situation. I'm imagining this is a typical situation. People are moving without knowing what they're doing. As it is the custom of the Pharisees, they may have gathered also some worthless men around them to push and make noise and cause some chaos and attract attention. And when they finally arrive, they don't respect the congregation, the people who are gathered there, with their self-righteousness and their uptightness. They shove around people. They're like, leave us way, leave us way, leave us way, and then they push the woman in the middle. I want to think that this woman did not go in the middle on standing. She first landed on her knees, and then probably she got up. I'm imagining that this woman does not have the courage to look at people, even Jesus, in the eyes. She's staring down the whole time as this drama is happening. Perhaps she's also having some wounds in her feet by this time. But the Pharisees, these guys are very, 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 very good people. They are not concerned about the woman. What they really want is to get Jesus. And it's the length to which they would go. It's the kind of people who deserve this question. How do you do it? How do you do it? I want to speak to you today about self-righteousness. Jesus encounters the self-righteous. Jesus encounters the self-righteous. And I'm imagining that somewhere here there is a very self-righteous person that is going to find this story very, very transformative. And I hope the Holy Spirit uses the preaching today to transform you. What is self-righteousness? Self-righteousness is thinking that you are morally right before God because of what you do. It is thinking that you have a standing and a position before God because of what you do. But it goes further than that. It is imposing that view on other people. That because you know that you know, therefore they should know that you know. It is making somebody feel like they are somehow spiritually inferior because they do not know that you know. And how do we see these guys reflecting self-righteousness? We are going to look at three characteristics of self-righteous people. And number one, they are interrupters. They are interrupters. And I'll tell you why I say this. One, these guys, they first probably interrupt this woman's sleep. That's a little bit controversial, but yes, they interrupt this woman's sleep. But more specifically, they interrupt Jesus' teaching. And I came to this conclusion because having been to churches from the village to the city, self-righteous people display this characteristic. They are constantly interrupting ministry at church, the work of God at church, the gospel work at church, in organizations, in Christian organizations, because they think they know better. back in my village, some of these characteristics show up when somebody, in my village, there's no church order. There's no, let's come, let's sing, let's pray, somebody talks. Somebody just walks up with their testimony. I have a testimony. And you can't shut them down. They have a testimony. But more recently, I have seen it in a very city church where somebody said, somebody walked out of the church because the singing wasn't to his standard. The singing wasn't emotional enough. That's what he told me later. Another time I faced it when somebody, after preaching, actually the person was still preaching when somebody walked up to me and said, that guy has just made us look very bad. Because the guy was giving a testimony of people who are serving in church. But self-righteous people are interrupters, and the Pharisees go ahead to interrupt the teaching of the gospel to these guys. The teaching of the gospel to, just imagine the eternal scheme of things. Someone pulls out a sinner, a woman who is sinning, and pulls them in the middle of the congregation. Just imagine somebody walks in right now here and interrupts this service with the idea that we should condemn somebody. How would you feel? How would you feel? And yet, they may not walk out into this congregation. You may be doing some things that look less interrupting. Like having your phone shout for us. Self-righteous people are constantly interrupting ministry and the work of God so that we can just know that they know. And these guys displayed moral self-righteousness. They think they are more holy. We are holier than thou. I am, I don't seem like you. Intellectual self-righteousness. And you know this because when these guys walk in the congregation, these guys quote a scripture from Leviticus, which truly condemns adultery. And it says that such people must be stoned. But you see, the scripture does not end there. Because if these guys were really concerned about the stoning, then they should have brought the man too. Because in that logic, you cannot reason with one part of scripture alone. That is why, scripture interprets scripture. But think about this. The scripture says both the man and the woman should be stoned. But why is it that they are reasoning from only one part of scripture? They are asserting only a portion that justifies their intellectual bent. Now it gets closer. You've probably done this before. You've picked a scripture and swung it, or rather shot it like John Raymond, because it justifies what you believe. You're very passionate about it. You're very convinced about it. Number two, they are fault finders. And they are not just fault finders, they are moral scouts. They are looking for situations in which they can incriminate other people or make other people find themselves spiritually inferior. And like this one, they go ahead looking for, just how does somebody find somebody committing adultery in a city of over 6,000 people? How do they do it? Do they send out spies to say, can you please scout everyone who is committing sin in this city and let us know? How do they do it? You must spend a lot of energy to be walking into your neighbor's room every day to find out, are they doing some form of sin? It takes a lot of creativity. In their minds, when they find this woman in sin, they do three things. They accuse the woman, and then they judge the woman, and they are waiting to condemn the woman. And the thing about being a moral scout is you do not, in a way, you do not want to hold the responsibility for that person's life. Because if you are your brother's keeper, you would be concerned about their state even after their sin. But since you are his Pharisee, you are thinking, all right, let us judge the woman, let us accuse the woman, and let us leave it for Jesus to finally condemn the woman. Because obviously the law condemns the woman. But even in their condemnation, they are not willing to go the next step, which is execution. Because when you condemn, you must then execute your condemnation. They said, a woman like this, a woman like this, a woman like this. They don't tell the whole story. They only tell the part of the story that supports their opinion. They don't come to understand, but they come to lay a trap for Jesus. Here's what African proverb says, that the chick, not girls, the chick that goes around uncovering the ash heap finds the bones of her mother. And that story, that proverb tells us that, you know, when you're acting like these Pharisees, what you uncover is not necessarily what you like. Just because you think you're looking for food does not mean you will find food. You will find your own condemnation. Number 3, they are deflectors. They hide behind their knowledge. The guilty hide their guilt behind other people's sin, or their knowledge of other people's sin. You can tell this because when Jesus finally confronted them and said, all right, this woman has obviously sinned, so let us start to vote with the stone. Let the one who has not done anything be the first to cast the stone. Their conscience trapped them. It demonstrated that they were sinners in private, hiding behind somebody's sin in public. They demonstrated that public sin is easy to condemn than private sin. They demonstrated that we are all sinners. They uncovered the bones, their own bones, so to say. And further, in asking them, let him who has not sinned be the first to cast the stone. Jesus does not say, okay, let the one who has not committed adultery be the one to cast the stone. But I'm imagining if these were a group of men, they probably understood Jesus as asking them, let the one who has not committed adultery be the first to cast the stone. They probably thought Jesus was asking that. But let's say this is any other sin. Still, all of us are condemned for every other sin we think, we do. And by asking this question, Jesus actually demonstrates that sin does not start from the act. It starts from the heart. And unfortunately, when sin happens, all of us, it is so visible that we are just looking at the act itself. It is so visible that we don't want to go ahead without making our opinion known about the sin. How does Jesus encounter the self-righteous? Number one, Jesus created an environment of self-reflection. And the first thing Jesus did is, he was under pressure. He was under pressure to condemn the woman. You know, they kept pushing. They kept pushing. They kept pushing. Even when Jesus stood down to write, they kept pushing. They're like, you know, do something, do something. You are the master. You are the master. Do something. But Jesus was so calm, that everybody might have thought of themselves at that point. Even under pressure, Jesus created an environment of self-reflection. And even this morning, I would like you to self-reflect that where Jesus is, you know, the first thing that should happen is not to look at another person's sin, but to actually look at your own heart. It is not to look at another person's act, but to look at your own heart. And the amazing thing is that the Spirit of God, where the Spirit of God, there is also conviction of sin. Not just on the other person's side, but also on your own side. You should stop and self-reflect. But secondly, Jesus asked a question of self-reflection. And the question was, if you have not done it, cast the stone. If you have not done it, execute. Now, a lot of Christians, of course, use this scripture to say, you know, don't judge me. Only Jesus can judge me. I think the point is beyond that. The point is execution. All right, we can debate about that later, but the point is execution. Let him who has not sinned be the first to hurl the stone. The obvious thing is the woman is judged because she has sinned. That is obvious. There is actually no point of telling us not to judge you because you're already judged. By telling us not to judge you, you're already judged. But the question we should also be asking ourselves this morning is, when it comes to execution for sin, which we have no right to, by the way, let him who has not done it be the first to hurl the execution. And the next time before you insist that somebody who has sinned be executed, please think about yourself. Let Jesus' question prick you in the heart. And the third thing Jesus does is he judges righteously. And when the woman was left alone, I don't know where the disciples were at this point, but if the disciples were there and they're seeing this from an outsider's perspective, maybe they're thinking, all right, they're flipping between the Jesus and the woman, Jesus and what is going to happen now. There is a suspense, there's drama happening. They are expectant. They're like, okay, what is Jesus going to do now? And Jesus asked the woman, no one has condemned you. Please mark Jesus' words. No one has condemned you. The woman says, no. And Jesus says, neither do I. Go and sin no more. And when Jesus judging righteously does not mean Jesus is passing over sin. Jesus judging righteously does not mean Jesus is passing over sin, or as a lot of people, I serve at a university area and there is this infestation of fellowships and so on where people are told that because Jesus has given you grace, you can sin the way you want because your soul is pure, but your body, Jesus, it's okay to use anything with your body. And people walk in, and it's difficult to make people really understand this if they do not understand the whole of the gospel. That Jesus does not pass over sin, because much more in our case, Jesus actually died for our sin. He faced the condemnation for yours and for my sin. And I think this judgment of Jesus is not only an act in that moment, but it is an act that points toward what Jesus is going to do. That he has the right, as the second person of the Trinity, he has the right, because of the promise of the future, because of what he's going to do in the future, because of his death and resurrection, to pass over this woman's sin and tell her, also give her the ability not to sin again. Go and sin no more. And Romans says that there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. And there is no condemnation for you. There is no condemnation for me. But the takeaway from these two is that we should sin no more. And this morning, if you are an interrupter, if you're a moral scout, if you're a deflector, you deflect your sin on other people, you do two things: self-reflect and go and sin no more. Lord, we thank you very much for your word. We pray that your Spirit shall take what we are and use it in our lives to correct us, to rebuke us, to train us to righteousness. In Jesus' name. Amen.